Before we get started, does anyone want to get out?
And here we go.
Live from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, welcome to the Confirmed Epic Podcast, the official podcast of the epicreview.com. That's thepicreview.com, and proudly presented by the Geeks Worldwide Radio Network. I, of course, am one of your hosts, the real Brad Bell, and joining me today for another very special bonus edition of the pod, not a.k.a. Andrew Stokes, somebody much better looking, my better half, Mrs. Abby Bell. Welcome back to the podcast,
Hey,
Abby.
thanks for having me back.
Of course, you're welcome on any time, considering that you help pay for half of the Confirmed Epic Podcast studio, a.k.a. the Mondo Poster Room.
Oh my god.
Here. It's a very special edition of the podcast, a bonus episode, because we've reviewed Abby's all-time favorite movie earlier this summer, Steven Spielberg's 1975 classic Jaws, right before we went to the beach. Lots of downloads, lots of play on that episode. Thanks for listening, guys. Abby has been gracious enough to come back onto the Confirmed Epic Podcast and discuss my all-time favorite film, Christopher Nolan's 2008 masterpiece, The Dark Knight.
Where do we begin?
A year ago, these cops and lawyers wouldn't dare cross any of you. I mean, what happened?
So what are you proposing?
It's simple. Kill the Batman. Here's my card.
Bruce, this is Harvey Dent.
Rachel's told me everything about you.
I certainly hope not. You once told me that we'd be together. Did you mean it?
Bruce, don't make me your only hope for normal life.
You're Alfred, right?
That's right, sir.
Any psychotic ex-boyfriends I should be aware of?
Oh, you have no idea.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We're tonight's entertainment. Well, hello, beautiful. You look nervous.
I've seen now what it would have to become to stop men like him.
The night is darkest just before the dawn. And I promise you, the dawn is coming.
And here we go.
This city deserves a better class of criminal. And I'm gonna give it to him. No! You'll see. I'll show you.
You either die a hero, or you live long enough to see yourself become the villain.
I feel like Penny's trying to tell me something.
Penny is always trying to tell you something. She's trying to tell us how much she doesn't like Christopher Nolan because all his movies are so loud and it makes it sound like thunder, and so she goes and hides under the bed. But before we get into my absolute favorite film of all time, let's get into some stats from this film, as I love to do, much to Andrew's chagrin here. WB, Warner Brothers, obviously, because they own DC Entertainment, released this film, PG-13 rating, directed by Christopher Nolan, starring Heath Ledger, Christian Bale, Maggie Gyllenhaal, Aaron Eckhart, the great Morgan Freeman, and the Chris Nolan regular Cillian Murphy. It's written, as well as Michael Caine as Alfred. It was written by David Goyer, Chris Nolan and his brother Jonathan, scored by the legendary Hans Zimmer, who has scored all of Christopher Nolan's films, grossed $1.4 billion worldwide at the international box office. 158.4 million of that came domestically on the film's opening weekend, which was a all-time record at that time. Yeah.
That's good.
Yeah, a lot of money. Really trumping Wonder Woman.
Hey, that's not fair.
Just trolling a little bit. It got 94% on Rotten Tomatoes.
What did Wonder Woman get? 92%?
92 or 93?
You want me to check?
You can double check. But Abby, this isn't a Wonder Woman podcast. This is a Dark Knight Batman-centric podcast.
Oh.
July 18th, 2008 was the release date, almost 10 years ago. Why is that a special date, Abby, for us?
My sister's birthday.
Yeah, Holden, who just turned 20.
Yep.
What did I get Holden for her 20th birthday?
She loved it. You got her Confirmed Epic podcast shirt.
Which you can get your own Confirmed Epic podcast. Go to tpublic.com/user/TheRealBradBell, REEL, Brad Bell. This film wasn't nominated for Best Picture, and there was an outcry, so the Oscars made it to where 10, not 5 films would be nominated for Best Picture. And Heath Ledger, of course, the late Heath Ledger, won the Oscar for Best Supporting Actor. All right, Abby, let's go ahead and get into this film. Much like our Jaws episode, despite the stats, this is a kind of laid back, I won't say nonchalant, but just supposed to be a casual conversation about my favorite film of all time, The Dark Knight. Abby, what are your thoughts on Christopher Nolan as a director? You're a fan of him, right?
Yeah, I think he pays attention to details, like the little small details, and I think that's what makes his movies so good. And he seems to be on top of everything, and I like how he did the Batman movies. He made it more realistic, whereas they've never really been done that way before. Like
Batman
this could really
has been the most realistic of all characters in comic books and mainstream comics, and in particular DC. But nobody has took this real-world approach to Batman the way Chris Nolan did. He made this a crime drama, not a superhero movie.
Yeah.
And you like that about it.
Yeah.
What do you like about it? Like, how does that attract you to this film or make you like this film more so than something that would be more fantastical?
Because it's more believable.
Yeah, I mean, I remember going and seeing Batman Begins, which is this film's predecessor, in 2005. And maybe of all 3 Nolan movies, it's the most realistic. And I'm like, oh my God, Batman could happen in real life.
Well, I mean, which one was Batman Begins?
That was the one that was in 2005. It was right before this one. It was the one that had Liam Neeson as Ra's al Ghul. Spoilers for that film. It had Cillian Murphy as the Scarecrow. We watched it. You're shaking your head, but we watched it in college.
No. You're talking about Christopher Nolan's. I was like, I don't remember
I was about a different Batman movie.
Yeah.
I'm glad you bring that up because it was something that I kind of failed to get into when we opened up this conversation. Batman Forever, Batman and Robin, 95 and 97.
See, that's what I grew up on, unfortunately.
I'm sorry for you. Those Joel Schumacher films were so bad that they kind of killed Batman on the big screen, and from 97 to 2005 there were no Batman movies until Chris Nolan revived it with this real world drama in the form of Batman Begins, 2008 The Dark Knight, and of course the 2012 end of the trilogy, The Dark Knight Rises. One of Nolan's influences for this film is the Michael Mann movie Heat. Now, I know, Abby, you haven't seen Heat. We own it. It stars Robert De Niro, who Val Kilmer's in it. It's like a 95, 96 movie, and Al Pacino are in it. Mm-hmm. And it was a movie that came highly recommended to me by our good friend Evan Trulove, one of his favorite movies of all time. And there are a lot of similarities between Heat and The Dark Knight. For example, Al Pacino, I can't remember if Al Pacino's the bad guy, the criminal, or if he's the cop. Anyway, it's one or the other, and Robert De Niro is one or the other, but they don't have their first meeting till like 3/4 through the movie. And Nolan kind of borrowed for that when we get to the Batman Joker interrogation scene, which we'll talk about as we move through this review. Do you remember, Abby, going to see this movie in the theaters?
Yeah, I went with my friend in high school.
You went to Stonecrest?
Yeah, I was a senior because I graduated high school in '08. It was
Yeah.
right before I met you.
Yeah, this movie came out months before I met
Oh,
Abby.
yeah, I graduated because it came out in July. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, The Dark Knight, a lot of hype was coming into this movie anyway because Batman Begins was so well received. Or I should say there was a lot of hype that came along with this film and this release. However, when Heath Ledger passed away of an accidental overdose before the film could ever be released,
Yeah.
it kind of cast this shadow over the film. But it also shadow of the Bat, more like shadow of the Joker, no pun intended. But it also had almost this mythical intrigue to it because you had heard from Christopher Nolan, who was well respected, not as much then as he is now, but this brilliant director, that this was the best performance that he had ever gotten and one of the best performances he had ever seen on screen. So do you remember the buzz kind of around Heath Ledger going into that Batman film?
Did he do it as a method actor? Was
Yeah.
it that kind of approach? Or did he break character?
Okay, so...
Because I've heard where he was like skateboarding and like goofing off with the crew. And I mean, Jared Leto used his Joker performance.
Let's not even talk about that. Okay, here's what I understand it. He didn't go the full Daniel Day-Lewis method actor where he lived as the character. Like Daniel Day-Lewis lived as a native.
He
in
does
Last of
it,
the
yeah.
Mohicans, excuse me. And Daniel Day-Lewis also lived as Lincoln even for like 6 months to a year while Spielberg and he were filming that. But here is my understanding is when he got the role, he rented this motel room.
And he locked himself in it and closed all the blinds and stuff.
Yeah, off the
He
beaten
isolated
path.
himself.
And he isolated himself. He watched a bunch of movies like Stanley Kubrick's Clockwork Orange, not The Dark Knight Orange. That's a Dark Knight Clockwork Orange mashup that would be epic. But he read the darkest Joker comics, watched all the on-screen portrayals of the Joker, including Jack Nicholson. He developed the mannerisms. He developed the laugh.
And
the
he
smile,
warned him.
And what?
I said Jack warned him.
Yeah, that's the next thing I was going to bring up, and you can look this up on YouTube, Jack Nicholson's reaction to Heath Ledger's
That's the eerie
death.
part about it.
It's really eerie because apparently one of the first calls that Heath Ledger made when he got this role was to Jack Nicholson. And he said, what's your advice on playing the character? He basically told him, be careful with this character. He's dark. He's demented. It can consume you a little bit. It's the funnest character to play, but don't let it consume you. And Nicholson was at a club or something the night Heath Ledger died, and he walked out and got stormed by paparazzi, and his quote is, I warned him.
Yeah.
So yeah, he did goof around on set. He was Heath Ledger on set. He wasn't the Joker. Again, it wasn't Daniel Day-Lewis extreme, but to isolate yourself for a month.
That's tough.
Yeah, and then come up with that chilling performance. And I'll never forget.
He totally transformed himself.
He did. And we're going to spend a lot of time.
He was an awesome actor. God, that was such a big loss.
It was. It's tragic. It's so sad that we lost Heath Ledger. And we're going to talk a lot about him in this podcast. But the hype, the marketing coming into this film, I remember the first trailer I saw was when I went and saw Superbad. And it was nothing but a voiceover and the Joker's laugh. And you're like, this is like, I think, right before Heath Ledger had passed away. Because he passed away in January of 2008, if I remember correctly.
I don't remember.
Either December 2007, January 2008. I can double check that. But I'll never forget when two things I'll never forget. A lot I'll never forget about this film. One is when Heath Ledger was cast. I believe it was A.K. Andrew Stokes gave me a phone call. He's like, get ready for Brokeback Batman. Because Heath Ledger had just appeared in Brokeback Mountain, which was a critically acclaimed movie from Ang Lee. And, I guess I was kind of worried. I didn't take it seriously. Boy, did I end up being wrong.
Yeah.
by a long. So that's why whenever I get upset about casting now, I try to think back to that story. I remember Christmas '07. We went and saw I Am Legend, which was another Warner Brothers movie. Will Smith, did you see that movie?
Never
Abby?
seen it.
Oh, you can't watch it because there's a real
No.
sad scene with the
Yeah,
dog. And
I heard about it and I was like, nope.
But anyway, that first trailer, because this was before our first real trailer. There had been the teaser, and this was like right before teasers were hitting on the internet and stuff the way they are now and the way they have been for a while. But I'll never forget that he has nothing in his pocket but knives and lint. And just seeing the Joker. I'd seen stills on Slash Film and stuff, but seeing the Joker for the first time on screen and then just anticipating that movie for like 6 months. It hit. We had like 14 people. We went at midnight. There were like some college guys in a frat or something in front of me, and they brought Budweiser into the film and were drinking it. So I distinctly remember that. But before we get into this review too much, how are your feelings toward Batman as a character? I mean, he's not your favorite superhero. Obviously, that's Wonder Woman. But where does Batman rank for you? For me, he's 1A. Spider-Man's 1B. Everybody knows that.
Yeah, I'd probably agree with you. But Captain America's above them, so they'd be like 3A, 3B.
So you got Wonder Woman?
Yeah, and the Cap. And then...
Which one you like better, Spider-Man or Batman?
Oh, God. That's so hard. I probably Spider-Man.
Just cause he's a more joyful character.
Yeah.
Think?
Yeah, probably.
Okay.
Yeah, because Batman's so dark.
Yeah, these films and a lot of, even the Keaton Batman movies, which I made you watch as well, they wear on you. I mean, these are dark films.
They are
the
very
Keaton
dark.
Burton films are like insanely dark. But we talked about the realism.
That's Tim Burton.
That's Tim Burton for you. What do you think about the score for these movies?
Oh, Hans Zimmerman?
Yeah.
Yeah, he's awesome. You know, he did Wonder Woman.
Hans
he did...
Zimmer.
Oh, did I say Zimmerman?
Yeah.
Oh,
Go
whoops.
ahead. It's all right.
He did Wonder Woman. He did Pirates of the Caribbean. He did something in The Lion King.
He's done a ton. He's one of the most celebrated.
Didn't he do The Nightmare Before Christmas too, I think?
No, that was Danny Elfman.
Oh, yeah, that's right.
Danny Elfman's usually Tim Burton's collaborator.
That's his go-to.
And he did the original Batman and Batman Returns. And I remember going into Begins, a lot of people were worried about how's the score going to be? Because are they going to just use that iconic Batman theme from '89 with Danny Elfman? But these movies have their own distinct and just epic
If you
score.
hear it, you know where it comes from. You're like, oh, that came from Batman.
Yeah, much like you would with like the John Williams Superman score. I mean, this is...
It's dark and like ominous.
And it makes great workout music. I tell you that.
No,
Especially when you're like on a treadmill. Yes,
oh
it does.
My
There's
God.
a ton
what
of
do you
like,
pretend like you're Batman on a treadmill?
Yeah, there's a ton of like Hans Zimmer workout compilations on YouTube.
Really?
Yeah, just look those up.
Are you serious?
I swear, you can look it up. They're pretty epic. But this trilogy as a whole, not only does each film have a distinct feeling, but each score, sure you have a lot of the same elements used, but the Dark Knight score really differentiates itself from the Begin score and the Dark Knight Rises score. So, let's start out, Abby, with this opening scene. A scene that I'd seen a million times because the summer that it came out, they released Batman Begins on Blu-ray for the first time, and it included that IMAX prologue, the bank robber scene. So, Abby, what do you think about that iconic opening scene, the bank robbery scene, where the clowns basically, I guess they harpoon and use the rope to go across?
Made my
to the
palms
bank?
a little sweaty at times. I'm not a fan of heights, but it was like such a like boom opening scene, introducing the Joker, but you didn't really know it was him at first until the very end of the scene where he gets on that school bus.
Had you have not seen that?
No.
You had not seen that scene going into the movie,
No,
right?
I didn't see anything.
Okay, because I mean, it had leaked on the internet. And,
No, I mean, just the previews. That's the only thing I saw.
okay, all right. So you were probably, I mean, I love seeing that on the big screen. I mean, you're probably pretty blown away. I mean, it has one of the most memorable opening scenes of all time. And of course, we're going to spoil this movie. Everybody listening to this podcast has seen this movie by now. I probably spoiled it on older episodes of the Confirmed Epic podcast. But yeah, just telling each member of this group of thugs there, those clown thugs, to kill one another, leaving the Joker to be the only one alive. And when that school bus backs into the bank, one thing that I forgot to mention when we were talking about our theater going experiences is this was the first film that I ever saw. Now, I saw it on a regular screen first, but the same opening weekend, it was myself, my brother, Joe and Paul, two of my friends, maybe Evan Trulip. We went and we watched this on True IMAX. And this was the first movie to have seen shot with an IMAX camera. And that opening scene, whole thing's in True IMAX.
Is it?
I'll never forget one of the most memorable cinema-going experiences I ever had in my entire life was in the Discovery Place Dome in Charlotte, North Carolina, when Joker pulls off that mask and that bass just drops on the Zimmer score. And Abby, that whole dome was just his face. And that quote, whatever doesn't kill you simply just makes you stranger.
Yeah.
And one of the Joker's many iconic quotes from this film. And just to see that, I mean, I about teared up, got goosebumps, because I remember thinking, I've loved these characters. Joker's been one of my favorite villains for a long time. I've watched these characters my whole life. But I remember thinking, this is the pinnacle of these characters. Like, we're never going to get probably a better version of the Joker or Batman or Commissioner Gordon, and just being just in awe of this magnificent film. So
yeah,
let's get into that Heath Ledger performance, because when people talk about The Dark Knight, it's the number one thing they talk about. So besides his commitment to the role and him, dedicating himself to that maniacal laugh and all that, what makes this performance so special? Let's just, this would be so optimistic, but let's pretend for a second Heath Ledger never died. Okay, obviously this is sadly remembered as his last complete performance, right? So that makes it special. But aside from that, what makes this performance so eerie and so special?
Why do you think?
Why do I think?
Yeah.
That's a tough question to answer. I think it's because he's unlike any Joker we had ever seen up until that point in the comics.
Does he look like any of the Jokers in the comic books? Because you know how Jared Leto looked like.
Yeah.
He got his image from several different...
Yeah, there was like a famous painting of Harley Quinn and Joker that Alex Ross, legendary comic book artist, did. And that inspired the Jared Leto look a little bit. Not the tattoos and all this. But enough about Jared Leto. I don't want to talk about Jared. I mean, I like Jared Leto.
No, I'm just
asking,
asking
Joker
because
gets
I didn't
a bad
know.
rap, but I think it's... He gave us, and I can't believe, and I would have never believed this probably going into the film, probably either this or Mark Hamill's portrayal of the Joker in Batman the Animated Series, his voice, his laugh, either one of those two are the definitive versions of the Joker. And I think that this incarnation of the Clown Prince of Crime just felt so definitive. And I liked how Joker in some comics has an origin story, but in most comics he doesn't.
Right, because when they're interrogating him, they're like, they fingerprinted him and all that, and they're like, we have no record of this guy anywhere. That's creepy.
No dental record.
No.
All of his clothing was custom.
Yeah.
He bought that suit with some of the bank robbery money.
Yeah.
Remember, he walks into those mob bosses. He's like, it's a nice
so
suit.
creepy.
He's like, you should know you bought it.
Yeah.
And I could probably quote this movie almost verbatim at this point.
Yeah. And then what I didn't know until you told me when we watched it a few days ago is when Batman's interrogating him and he's physically beating him up. Like Heath was.
See, it's like
I didn't know that.
Joker.
Heath was like, really, no, hit me, like.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
A lot of people don't know this. I have a book that's it's the Art of the Dark Knight trilogy, but I mean, it's that book title is so misleading. It's sitting over there on the bookshelf because it is the probably number one source besides searching out interviews with Chris Nolan and Christian Bale. The number one source of all the behind the scenes stuff in the making of that Batman trilogy. It came out in 2012 when Rises came out. And in that interrogation scene, which I think is the best scene in the history of superhero movies,
yeah,
he beats the shit out of Heath Ledger, and they were going to bring in a stunt double, and Heath Ledger said no. He said, I'm going to take this beating. So when he takes his fist and puts it over his hand, when he slams him up against the wall,
when he like throws his
his head up against
he comes up from behind him and like pushes his head down on that table,
and then that bass drops on that score, and Batman's just standing there and the light comes on. I mean, Heath Ledger took all this punishment, so I mean it was such a physical commitment. But you going back to your question and my question, what makes this such a special version of the Joker is it not only was it it was definitive, but it was also unlike anything we've ever seen, which I know kind of sounds like contradictory. But whenever he talks about how he got these scars, and he tells the story about his wife getting in deep with the loan sharks and him, putting the razor blade in his mouth and stuff like that.
His dad beating his mom up and
taking a knife toward him and. Yeah, so he has multiple versions of his own origin story.
Yeah.
Which I think is just a brilliant piece of writing because it makes the Joker that much more eerie.
And more mysterious.
Not knowing how he became this.
Yeah.
A part of me would like to know, a part of me wouldn't. Another thing, while we're on the subject of Heath Ledger is, if I could ask Christopher Nolan one question, it would be, what were your original plans for The Dark Knight Rises? Because what I had heard was that Joker was going to return. And they had to obviously change that. Of course, they weren't going to recast Joker when Heath Ledger...
How could you after that?
Exactly. They tried with Jared Leto. Of course, different film universe, but still... I just wonder what that story would have been. There's the scene in the middle of The Dark Knight Rises where Bane goes into a prison and he lets a bunch of people out. Now, there's two schools of thought. There's one that he would have let the Joker out there, and there's one that he would have went to the Joker's cell in Arkham. Of course, he goes to Blackgate and Rises, but it would have been Arkham in the original script, and he would have let all these murderers and rapists and thugs and criminals out. But the Joker is just so screwed up and such a wild card that he was going to leave the Joker there. And you would just see the Joker being stuck in the padded cell. And, so what do you like about this performance so much, Abby?
Well, it says right here he did not stay in character between takes.
Okay.
So that must be really hard to get that dark and to get that... I don't know.
To get that into a role, but Abby, you kind of have a different perspective on this than I did. Because you love the movie. I like the movie too, probably not as much as you. 10 Things I Hate About You.
No,
And
that's
The
not my
Patriot.
favorite. Yeah, I like The Patriot.
I didn't say it was your favorite movie. I love 10 Things I Hate About You.
It's okay. It's okay.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt's in that. Julia Stiles. Great 90s movie. But when you saw Heath Ledger for the first time, when you went and saw The Dark Knight originally, could you tell it was him? It's hard, ain't it? It's hard to answer.
Oh, that's hard to answer because that was like 10 years ago almost.
Yeah, it was 10 years ago. I mean, well, when you watch it, we rewatched this the night before I went and saw Dunkirk. because I wanted to do something Nolan-esque for that movie.
I mean,
but,
even his voice was different. You know, he's Australian, but
Yeah.
I mean, still the pitch in his voice and
Heath Ledger has a pretty deep voice.
yeah, typically.
And this voice is a much more higher pitch voice.
Yeah.
And I mean, you can mimic it and all you want and try to replicate it, but I think he's the only one that can give us that definitive laugh, that definitive voice. There's a scene that is really frightening from the Joker in which he has one of the Batman impersonators and he's filming him, and it's when he kind of shows his face to the world for the first time. And I remember being freaked out by that scene where
Just
he's
him
like,
giggling behind the camera?
him, look at me! Like that scene.
Yeah.
That's what he said. And I remember, I think I was sitting next to Josiah when we went. And so I remember Josiah just looking at me and being like, damn.
Yeah.
And another thing, too, is being in a packed house, seeing that movie at midnight. When he did the whole pencil trick thing,
Yeah.
that theater was like a collective, oh, shit.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I mean, like, there were so many holy crap moments, and so much of that was driven by that incredible performance, that incredible plot by the Joker. I
like his makeup, too. I think that adds to the creepiness level when he does his expressions and stuff. It makes it even more creepy. And then his neck is his flesh color.
Yeah.
Like, he doesn't paint. And
He's
I think
not
that
a professional. His skin's not bleached or anything.
that's what I like about it, though. Because it's
Yeah.
like he probably escaped some insane asylum and,
Yeah.
dyed his hair green and puts this makeup on. So, he could wash it off. Unlike, if he was dyed in some plant.
Two of the scenes that are just shots, maybe I should say, that stick with me with the Joker from now until the day that I die, is when he escapes the MCU, Major Crimes Unit, not Marvel Cinematic Universe.
Yeah, I was going to say, what?
When he escapes, that's crazy to say now, but that's what they call it in the movie, the Major Crimes Unit. And he's in that cop car. And he's just sticking his head out the window and letting the breeze, and that bass is just dum, dum,
Yeah.
dum. I mean, that scene, every time I watch this, like, I'm just enthralled and captivated. Like, this is scary as hell. Like, and this is a character I've been watching since I was 3, but never have I been frightened more from this guy. If I would have saw this version of
when
the
you were
Joker,
a kid,
holy crap! I mean,
Yeah.
the Nicholson version,
you would have
freaked
nightmares.
Me out. Yeah, another thing too. Here's another scene that just shot again that really sticks with me is when he gets the mob their money back at the end. He slides down that pile of money, but that's not the part. It's when he says, Gotham deserves a better class of criminal, or this city deserves a better class of criminal, and I'm gonna give it to him. And he takes that cigar from the mobster and he just lights those millions of dollars on fire.
Yeah.
And you just see that image of him, and he's calling, on the Gotham Tonight show or whatever, and just that money burning. You're like, it goes back to what Michael Caine's Alfred was telling Batman. This man just wants to watch the world burn.
Yeah.
And there's something that's so scary about that. I mean, you have, terrorists, you have people who do things for political gain, who do things for territorial
For religion.
religious gain. You have things for obviously monetary gain.
Yeah.
But for someone just to do it, just to screw with everybody, and to try to prove that deep down everybody may be just as screwed up as he is. I don't know. There's something just so sick and so twisted about that. But we could talk about Heath Ledger for like an hour or so.
Well, Nolan dedicated the movie to Ledger.
And that seems like something that's like, oh, duh, that's a no-brainer. But I mean, if you really know Chris Nolan, like if this was something that
they said he was mourning while he edited the film.
Yeah. Nolan doesn't just throw out dedications. Like this performance and Heath Ledger as an actor and a person, I mean, we'll never know because Nolan's a private person and he doesn't do many interviews unless it's just talking directly about his projects or his project he's currently doing. I mean, for him to dedicate this film that's his, most well-known film to Heath Ledger struck a chord in him, both as the Joker and as an actor and a person. So that was a pretty cool move from Chris Nolan. Like, Chris Nolan, he's doing the press rounds for Dunkirk, and so many times, like, Variety and People and Entertainment Weekly and these big outlets,
Yeah.
when they try to talk to Chris Nolan in the past, they don't want to talk about what he's doing. They want to talk about what he's done or what he might do. And Nolan's always one project at a time. And
that seems fair.
He doesn't do a lot of those big interviews. Like, a lot of his Dunkirk interviews, he traveled across the country and did a bunch of interviews with local TV people.
That's cool.
Yeah. So here is a local TV person
interviewing Christopher Nolan,
the most legendary actor alive aside from Steven Spielberg.
Director.
Sorry, excuse me. If he acted too, that would be something else. But the most legendary director alive this side of Steven Spielberg. But Heath Ledger's going to continue to pop up throughout this discussion. But let's go ahead and get into some other aspects of the film.
So I feel like there's a character that kind of gets overshadowed in this movie.
And who's that, Abby?
Harvey Dent. Or
played by Aaron Eckhart here.
Yeah, or Two-Face.
Two-Face.
Yeah.
Why do you think that's the case? Why does he get overshadowed? Just cause of Ledger or the scope of the film?
Oh, yeah, for sure. Ledger's performance, and then...
What'd you think about Aaron Eckhart in the role?
I think he's a great actor.
I think, actor.
Yeah, because he's kind of the hero of Gotham, where he's tracking down all these thugs, and then at the end...
mob.
Yeah. Then, he's dating Rachel Dawes, and he has this whole dynamic with Bruce Wayne being the ex, and they have that relationship.
But is he really the ex at this point? Because it's almost like Rachel, played by Maggie Gyllenhaal, she's with both of them, kind of.
Well...
She chooses
Harvey, and you don't know until you read the note that
she gives Alfred.
Yeah, at the end, which she burns.
I think it's fitting that we moved from Joker to Harvey Dent to Aaron Eckhart, because what if I told you, Abby, that Christopher Nolan intended, and I guess still does, with looking back at the film, Harvey Dent to be the main character of this movie?
Really?
Did you know that?
No.
I swear. Yeah, he did. So...
He intended for him to be the main character?
And if you think about it, he is. And I'm going to tell you why. And for those of you who are not versed in Dark Knight lore like I am, buckle up, because this is going to be a hell of a ride. So, one of the big inspirations for Nolan on The Dark Knight was this comic, and I can let you read it. It's called Batman The Long Halloween. And it's a 13-issue comic book run that starts...
The Long Halloween?
Yeah. It starts in October. It actually came out in October. I think it came out in like 2002 or 2003. I have all these issues signed by the artist, Tim Sells, written by Jeff Loeb, who Andrew Stokes loves. But it started on Halloween in the actual book and was released in October, and one issue came out the whole year. And each issue revolved around a different holiday, and a lot of times it showed us a new kind of version or take on Batman villains. But the main character of the book is Harvey Dent, and it's all about his fall from grace, from being the great district attorney to being Two-Face, right?
Yeah.
And that's the story we see here. So he wants in on the action, Harvey Dent does. He wants to be a part of this triad that it will become between Bruce Wayne, Batman,
and Rachel Dawes.
And not Rachel Dawes. No, that's the love triangle. I'm talking about with Commissioner Gordon. The triad to take down the crime of Gotham City. Because you remember that scene where they're all three on the top of the police department with the bat signal. That is a scene directly out of Batman The Long Halloween. As far as I recall, it's the only time in comics where you had Harvey Dent, Commissioner Gordon, and Batman all together near the bat signal. Great scene in the comic, The Long Halloween. Great shot in the movie.
If they made a poster of that, would you buy it?
That would be a cool poster. I don't know. I have 2 Dark Knight. I knew we'd get the posters inevitably with me, Abby, and I being on a podcast together. I have 2 Dark Knight posters in here. I have the Kevin Tong that has the Joker in the computer screen that Lucius uses at the end of the film, and I have him stand that on the rubble, which is a Laurent Deroux. Abby, you know Laurent Deroux because he did what?
Jaws.
Yeah, your favorite poster of all time in our living room. So, what do you think about these posters, Abby? Then we'll get back to Harvey Dent.
I do like the Laurent Deroux, not just because, honestly, not just because of that he did my Jaws poster. I really like it because it's black and white except for the police lights, and he's standing on that rubble holding that clown mask.
The bank robber Joker mask.
Which you have that mask, and I remember you wearing that in college all the time, like my freshman year.
I don't know if you should talk about a personal life like that, Abby.
Well, I didn't say anything bad.
I'm joking.
Yeah.
One cool thing, if you go and look at that poster, there's a bunch of Easter eggs in it. I'm talking about the Laurent Deroux one. There's like a campaign poster of Harvey Dent.
Yeah, I feel like he's good at planning that.
And half of it's tore off.
Yeah.
Like Two-Face, right? And then there's the I Believe in Harvey Dent like campaign button. I'll have to find it in there and show it to you at the end of this podcast. But speaking of which, San Diego Comic-Con 2017 was this past weekend. Mondo put out a ton of stuff, which Will and I are going to talk about on our Dunkirk review this week. And one of the things they put out is a new artist, Rory Kurtz is the guy's name. They did a timed edition, the Dark Knight poster, in which is Batman on the edge of a building.
That's the one you showed me.
Yeah, what'd you think of that poster? He's on the edge of a building.
I like that one better.
Better than these two?
No, not the Laurent Deroux one, but better than the
other one?
Yeah, with the screen,
really?
The sonar.
See, I
don't know.
Go ahead.
That it's just a lot of okay. I know the focus is on the Joker on that sonar, but I don't know. I just think it's so plain.
I like, but sometimes that's
it's
good.
Simple.
It's minimalist.
Yeah, it's simple.
It's got,
which I guess is good because your other one's not, so it balances it out.
Both
and they're the
of those
same
are
size.
pretty minimalist. Yeah, they're the same size, but they're both horizontal posters too.
Right.
Which is cool because that Laurent Deroux is the variant because the actual the reg is
vertical.
Is taller, yeah, and you see a lot.
See more of the building.
Yeah, but
you showed me that.
Some of the Easter eggs in the rubble.
Yeah,
that you do here. I don't know. I remember seeing that Laurent Deroux poster. It's like I gotta have it, and I mean it's not like a Grail. I mean you can get this poster for like $130. It's not one that's like Jaws where it's $2,200 or some like the Toy Story they had Tom Whalen's like $700. But what'd you think of that Roy Kurtz poster? You liked it? Why did you like? I wasn't crazy about it. One, because it seemed kind of plain. Two, because it didn't have a credits block.
Well, I thought because that's really, I guess, in Gotham.
Yeah.
I originally thought it was like in Hong Kong. You know, where he leaps off that building and he flies like a bat. Because I love that part of the movie.
Yeah.
But
the same artist that did that.
It looks like he's just watching over Gotham.
That's cool.
Yeah.
But I mean, not cool enough for me to buy it and take something down to put up.
I just like... Oh, sorry.
It's all right. You like what? Go ahead.
I just like pictures of the city.
Yeah. And each part of that building landscape of Gotham and that Rory Mondo poster was very intricate. I mean, it's a great poster. If I didn't have a Batman poster, a Dark Knight poster,
and you have that
it.
one right there.
Yeah, I have a Ollie Moss Batman, the Dark Knight.
You have
Rises.
enough Batman posters.
That was my first Mondo poster.
Really?
Was that Ollie Moss? It was a timed edition. San Diego Comic-Con 2012. I also bought Will Maney one as a wedding gift.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah, so we both have that poster. So that will be one that I'll hold on to for a long time, just because it was my first, and Will also has that poster. But getting back to why Two-Face is the main character of this story. So, Two-Face and there's a lot of allegory going on in this film. This is a big political allegory. Mm-hmm. Even though that Chris Nolan is British. There's a lot to do with American politics behind the scenes in this film, and this may be, this isn't me just Chris Nolan has denied this, but there's so many articles, so many YouTube videos and podcasts just that dove into the specific kind of allegory that The Dark Knight is for the war on terror. So here's why Two-Face is the main character within the context of just the film. Joker had an ace in the hole with Harvey Dent, which he tells Batman when Batman has him hanging upside down there at the end of the film. His battle for Gotham, he calls it the battle for Gotham's soul, wasn't to beat Batman. He didn't want to kill Batman. Joker loves Batman. He would be bored without Batman.
Yeah.
He wanted to prove that if I can show that Harvey Dent, who's the best of us, right, can fall, then anybody can fall.
Yeah.
And there's no hope. And there was a lot of that in the boat because you have the scenes with the two fairies.
That's
right?
what I was just thinking about with the two fairies, and that he gave them both buttons to explode the other one.
Yeah, which parallels this. So,
yeah.
Supposedly the criminals who they were getting off of Gotham had a trigger that would kill the other fairy that was the civilians, and vice versa. And Joker wanted to show within that scenario that the worst of humanity would prevail, and they would kill one another. And I'm willing to bet that if the criminals would have hit the button, that it would have killed them, the criminals, not the other side.
You think?
And if the civilians would have hit the button to kill the criminals, it would have killed the
That's
civilians.
actually interesting. I never even thought about that.
That's my theory with that kind of tense scene there. But the Joker wants to show that if I can take the best of the best, this ideal of hope and optimism, and show that he can fall to evil.
He can fall from grace.
Exactly. Very well put, Abby. Then Gotham as a whole, there is no hope, and there's no hope for humanity, and that anybody can crumble. So here's the political allegory here.
Yeah.
In this scenario, Harvey Dent represents America. Okay, and I actually tell this to my kids when I teach the Patriot Act. It's not as effective now because as this movie gets older, less and less students have seen this.
That's crazy.
I know, it is crazy. Because this was a movie like everybody saw. I mean, if you didn't like superheroes, didn't like Batman, whatever, this was the biggest movie of that year, of 2008.
Oh, yeah.
So, Harvey Dent represents America. And if America in the war on terror is willing to kind of give up all of its morals, such as, hurting people with interrogation, if it's willing to give up privacy through things like the Patriot Act, because once upon a time, Benjamin Franklin said, there is no liberty without privacy.
Yeah.
And if we're willing to give that up, or that may not have been the exact quote, but it was something to that effect, then the terrorists have won,
right?
Or we're just as bad as the terrorists. So if we're willing to fight terrorism, obviously this is kind of a liberal viewpoint, but if we're willing to fight terrorism by giving up our freedom, our right to privacy, then terrorists, that's a big victory for them.
They would have won.
Yeah, that's a lot of our freedom. If we stoop to their level of interrogation and hurting people and being barbaric, then we're showing that we're just as bad as them.
Yep.
And there's a lot to mirror that kind of whole right to privacy allegory in this film with the
sonar.
Yeah, with the sonar machine. So
and Lucius didn't even want to use that.
No, he didn't, and that's one of the reasons I like that poster so much, because it represents that, which may be the biggest theme of the movie, that right to privacy. So
yeah, and that's why I liked that character so much too.
Lucius, Morgan Freeman,
played by Morgan Freeman,
who's an
awesome actor.
One thing is this sonar machine. Batman has basically taken this machine that Lucius gave him to help him in Hong Kong and engineered it to tap into every cell phone in Gotham City so that he could track down the Joker. And Lucius Fox says, I'm going to help you this one time, but consider this my resignation. He said, type in your name. And Batman gives that whole monologue at the end of the movie where he's like, sometimes people deserve better than the truth. Sometimes people deserve to have their faith rewarded. And he types in his name, and what happens to the machine, Abby? You remember? it self-destructs. It destroys itself. Batman doesn't. He built that machine for one purpose, for one moment in time only, to catch the Joker. But
So does Batman know that?
know what? That the machine is gonna
Wait, who knew about that though? Lucius or Batman?
only Batman.
Okay,
'Cause
so
remember
Lucius didn't know that he. Okay.
Yeah, that he was doing all this
Okay.
with the cell phone because there was that whole thing as I'm playing this one tight to the vest. Bruce Wayne tells Batman because Bruce Wayne tells Batman. Bruce Wayne tells Morgan Freeman because Morgan Freeman asked a question about that, and just that whole thing with just the political allegory. I mean, during that time in 2008, we're getting toward the end of Bush, right? Obama was running for president that summer
Against McCain.
and it was like people we're in the middle of the Iraq War then, the Afghanistan War, the Patriot Act had been going for a long time.
Yep.
People were they were burnt out on. I mean, you find it hard to believe that anybody'd be happy about war, but I mean, a lot of times in politics, people are really fired up about war. It makes them, like I'm talking about voters and civilians, it makes them more patriotic. But as time passes, like with Iraq and Vietnam and Afghanistan, they wear thin on it. And by that point, when this movie came out, a lot of people wore thin on it. But here's the thing, we're wearing thin on war. Heath Ledger overshadowed this movie so much. His performance was so bigger than the entire movie.
Bigger than life, yeah.
I mean, yeah, it was. I mean, you hear that term larger than life, but this is truly a time where that that motto is apropos because, I mean, that there was so much that was kind of missing as far as the discussion of all the political stuff that I felt had Heath Ledger not have given as good of a performance or had not passed,
right,
then a lot of that stuff would have been talked about a lot more. Not that it wasn't. We're talking about it here. What do you think about them recasting Rachel Dawes? So we go from Katie Holmes in Batman Begins to Maggie Gyllenhaal.
She's such a weak actress.
Talking about Katie Holmes, right?
Oh, God, yeah. Maggie Gyllenhaal's awesome.
So you liked her.
Yeah, I think
Dawes.
it needed to be recasted. I think, yeah.
What did you like most about her performance?
You could just see her turmoil in her head,
Yeah, she did a good job of showing that she felt that she was having a hard time deciding between Harvey Dent and Bruce Wayne.
And then, she did an awesome job when that scene where she's talking to Harvey Dent. I guess it's over the... Penny, stop.
There's that scene where they're tied up, and
it's either going to be one that dies
or the
other, and she thought for sure Batman was coming after her, which he thought he was too. But Joker had,
he told
tricked
them the opposite, right?
Yeah.
So he said that she was at 250 seconds,
and that's really where Harvey Dent was, and vice versa.
Yeah, that's the reason, Abby, that I think the whole thing with the fairies, that if the criminals would have hit it, it would have killed them, not the other boat, because it's the Joker, and everything's been, the opposite, and he's so screwy. But yeah, that is, you feel that turmoil in her voice and her performance when she has to talk to Harvey Dent, and
and then she can hear when they're coming in and saving, or Batman is coming in and saving him, and she's like, oh shit, it's gonna be me. And
Commissioner Gordon's just a hair too late to get in there and save Maggie Gyllenhaal's character, Rachel Dawes. What do you think about kind of the effect? Because the only thing that was CG in this movie, Abby, was the helicopters that were
I couldn't believe that when you told me that. Because even when they're doing that whole car chase...
Well, excuse me, hold on. And Two-Face's make.
We knew that. Yeah. Because I was like, that's awesome makeup. That has to be.
Yeah.
Because when they're doing that whole car chase scene, I'm like, how much... Where they flip the truck over?
Yeah, I watched and it's in that book, the art making of the Dark Knight trilogy. And it's in... If you watch the extras on these movies on the Dark Knight, what they did was... So they put this giant metal rod, like a catapult, they made it just the size of a sewer hole, and when the truck went over the sewer hole,
Flip over.
the catapult shot up through the sewer and flipped the truck. And they did this in the streets of Chicago.
Wow.
So all the city you see, whether it's Hong Kong, they're in Hong Kong. When they're in Gotham, they shut down the streets of Chicago. There is no green screen in this film.
That's what I think makes it better too.
You can feel that. Like, I don't care how good the effects are. I mean, you look at some of these Marvel movies, the green screen's incredible. But there's something about that real world grittiness that you sense in these Nolan movies.
But even that helicopter, I couldn't tell that was CGI
Yeah, that
until
was
it
good
started
CG.
crashing down. And
Yeah, but that scene with the truck and, you know, the bat pod, when the bat pod goes up and turns, obviously they did that really slow, but they did that like it's just... I would just love to spend one day on set with Christopher Nolan. Because, I mean, it was the same stuff with Dunkirk. Like, all this stuff was practical. And we're going to talk about that, Will and I, when we review that film. But one tense scene in this movie comes at the culmination of the film, Abby. And after the Joker's been dealt with, when you have Harvey Dent, Two-Face now, Commissioner Gordon, and Batman, and Harvey Dent has kidnapped the children and wife, the son and daughter of Gary Oldman's Commissioner Gordon, and he's flipping the coin. And a lot of people don't like this scene. They felt it was rushed. I love this scene.
Why do they think it was rushed?
Like, I've just heard some, Evan Truelove, say that the third act of this, because the third act's the whole stuff with the Joker and going up into the building with the sonar, that there's almost this tacked on fourth act. My argument is they build up Harvey Dent throughout this whole movie, and the fall of Harvey Dent is that's what this movie's all about.
Mm-hmm.
And the fact that they cover it up, because if they tell Harvey Dent all those criminals, Harvey Dent committed these murders as Two-Face, all those criminals and whatnot would walk free. Of course, Batman takes the blame. We can talk about that in a second. But what a tense scene, Abby, when he has the gun pointed at the kids and he makes Commissioner Gordon tell them everything's going to be okay. I don't. This scene gets me every time,
because he had to tell Rachel.
Yeah, that everything was going to be okay, even though
they knew.
He knew
that
it
wasn't.
And it makes you feel really empathetic, because you think, what if this was me and I had to tell somebody I loved that everything was going to be okay, and even though it wouldn't. But you know, first of all, the score here is freaking incredible. It's subtle, but I know this is going to sound contradictory again, but it's the most powerfully subtle track in a score ever, because Abby, when Two-Face has got the gun pointed and he's like, why did he choose me? He's like, we tried to be indecent men in an indecent world. And he's like, why did the Joker choose me? And Batman goes, because you were the best of us. You wanted to show if you could fall. I mean,
yeah,
it's just so good. And it really puts a neat little bow on this incredible journey that you've taken for the past 2.5 hours. And there's the whole thing, you know, that whole message at the end with Batman taking the blame for those murders, the Harvey Dent and Two-Face, saying, I want to hear what you think about this, because it is positive and it's not. Batman says sometimes people deserve better than the truth. They deserve to have their faith rewarded. And a lot of people take that as people don't need to know everything the government does. Sometimes the government needs to lie to people. Sometimes the people deserve better than to know the truth. You don't have to answer the question about the government thing, but like, what do you think about that ending, Abby? Where he has to, where he has
to run off?
No, not where he has to run off, but saying this messaging of the film saying that sometimes the truth isn't good enough. Was that a downtrodden message? Was that uplifting? I mean, how do you react to that? How did you take that?
I don't even know. I don't even know what to say to that. I honestly, like, what do I think
Yeah.
in this movie?
No, not within the. I mean, just it can be within this movie. It can be within in general. I mean, do you think it was not poor messaging because it was well done, but do you think it was a negative message to say that sometimes people
I think it
deserve
just
more
depends
than
on the
truth?
context, though.
So lying is justified sometimes if it's for the betterment of everybody's feelings. Is that how you feel?
In certain situations, maybe. Certainly not in my job.
Yeah.
And not your job either.
But within there's certain. I mean, that's the great thing about Nolan movies is because there is no clear cut. There is no, right or wrong. Of course, you ask somebody.
Kind of like the ignorance is bliss.
Yeah.
Kind of.
Is lying okay? No, lying's not okay.
I think if it protects.
Your mom and dad taught you that if you had a good mom and dad, grandparents, aunt, uncle, guardians, whatever.
I think it just depends on the context.
But, yeah, that's the thing. But here within this context, you're like, well, I kind of understand why Batman lies and why they cover this up.
Yeah.
And that's the thing about Nolan movies, whether it's Inception, is it a dream, is it not a dream, whether it's this, they always keep you talking about them. Like, this is almost 10 years.
It makes you think.
Yeah. All his movies make you think.
All of them make you think. Like,
but
Inception,
they're blockbusters, too.
Yeah.
Excuse me. They're not like art house productions where he's just going for an Academy Award. Do you think Christopher Nolan will ever win an Academy Award?
I don't think that's his goal. I think he deserves one. But I don't think that's why he's making movies.
I think he is kind of above that, but I don't care who it is, whether it's Martin Scorsese, Steven Spielberg, George
So he's
Lucas.
Never won an Academy
He's been
Award.
Nominated for Inception. That was the only one of his films.
Who won that year?
Then Inception came out. I'll have to look at. Inception came out in 2010. You like that movie, don't you, Abby?
Yeah, I like that movie.
I'm gonna look up Best Picture winner 2010.
That's like another one of your favorite movies.
It's in my top. The Hurt Locker one. God, that was a good movie too.
Oh yeah, okay.
Oh my god.
So I could see that being.
2010
Yeah.
was just a crazy year. I wonder what else was nominated that year. Hold on, I'm gonna look up Best Picture. Let's see here. This is great radio. Me scrolling through the internet. Let's see. Music, documentary, film editing. Best Picture. Avatar was nominated.
Oh my god, remember that?
I don't hate Avatar, but it's so overrated.
Yeah.
District 9. Oh my god, incredible movie.
Wait, that was about the aliens?
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
In Education. Can't even remember that. The Hurt Locker one. Inglourious Bastards.
Wow.
Precious.
Precious.
Remember Precious?
Yeah.
What's that girl's name?
Gabrielle
Sidibe.
No.
I can't remember.
Gabrielle Sidibe?
Yeah, that's it. She's also in another one of our favorite shows, American Horror Story.
Oh, yeah.
Serious Man. That's a Coen Brothers movie I hadn't seen. Up in the Air. That's the one with George Clooney in it.
I don't remember that one.
If you saw it, you know it. The Blind Side.
He played Batman.
And Up. This is not the right year. Let's see.
Up.
It says this is 20. Maybe Inception wasn't nominated. Or was Inception 2010? Was Inception nominated for Best Picture?
Was DiCaprio nominated for that movie?
Maybe it was DiCaprio that was.
Because,
he
he
won
just
the
won.
award for Best Cinematography. But I don't know if it was nominated or not. That was 2010. It was nominated for Best Picture. Okay. I guess it just wasn't on that list. And it was 2010. But yeah, so anyway, to make a long story short and a lot of internet banter short there, he was nominated for Inception. Inception has been his most critically well-received movie. We'll see how Dunkirk does.
I want to see it.
Oh, yeah, you need to see it. Now, so I think he'll win a Best Picture.
He will. It's just a matter of when.
It may be one of those things where he's older.
Because DiCaprio finally won one.
Yeah. Like Scorsese won for The Departed, and Departed was fine, but I mean, Scorsese had so many other movies that should have won before The Departed, so a lot of people thought it was kind of like a lifetime achievement award. So
I don't really know much about the Academy Awards because I really don't watch them.
You know that.
Yeah, and I know they have their issues with the whole race because Straight Outta Compton wasn't nominated for anything one year. And I don't really watch award shows that much unless it's like a music award, but I don't even watch that anymore.
Let's close with 2 questions here. Will there ever be a Batman movie as good as this? Yes or no?
No. Unless it's different. But
I think there could be, and Jerry brings this up a lot, Jerry Barbecue 17 Reed, that the only thing that could rival this, and you hit the nail on the head, is if it's completely different. Like, they did a Batman movie where it was like...
But how do you even make it different?
Like, do one that's fantastical. Like, do like a poison ivy, a killer croc, or what?
Mr. Freeze.
Yeah, Mr. Freeze. And that's one, like a good one, not Schwarzenegger. Like, somebody like a Guillermo del Toro doing a fantastical Batman movie. Because if you try to do this... It's not, because I kind of feel like the Affleck Batman is kind of trying to do this, but it doesn't work.
That's what I was just going to ask you about the Batfleck.
What were you going to ask me?
What is your feeling on
Batfleck?
Yeah.
I love Ben Affleck. I think he's a great director and a great actor.
Yeah.
I love The Town. I love...
But people are going to always compare these movies to Nolan's movies.
Yeah, he has them.
Is that fair?
I don't think it's fair because Nolan wasn't trying to make superhero movies. I think it's almost unfair, and I do this. I'm just as guilty as anybody.
Well, his are more fantastical probably anyway.
Yeah, well, here's the thing. Is it fair to compare something like the Marvel Cinematic Universe to this?
No.
Because every time...
They're completely different.
But listen. Every time a superhero movie comes out, like, say, Wonder Woman, a really good superhero movie, epic superhero movie, made the most money this year, biggest movie of the summer so far, right? And probably will be. Maybe the biggest movie of the year, probably, besides Star Wars: The Last Jedi. And here's what everybody asks about Wonder Woman.
Okay.
Is it as good as The Dark Knight?
Which is not fair.
It's not fair because The Dark Knight's not one of the best superhero movies ever made, Abby.
Yeah.
It's one of the best movies ever made. It was on Empire Magazine's 2017 list. It was number 3. It was Godfather. It was, what was number 2? Oh my gosh.
I don't even remember.
Empire Strikes Back.
Oh, yeah.
And then it was The Dark Knight.
Shit.
Was their number 3 greatest movie of all time? What?
I just looked at, Spider-Man has a better score. So Wonder Woman has 92% on Rotten Tomatoes, and Spider-Man has 93.
93?
Yeah.
But in Dark Knight,
has
going
94.
back to this film, has a 94, yeah. So, well, okay, will there ever be another superhero film this good? I mean, I know it kind of leaves you speechless, but I mean, what do you think? Yes or no?
I don't know. I really don't know that. That's like so... Then you have to get into all the superheroes.
Here's the thing. I think there will be a
Do you not think that one from Marvel doesn't rival The Dark Knight?
The only one that does to me is Winter Soldier. Like, to me, the 2 best superhero movies ever made, and if you really dig deep, there are so many great and epic ones, but the 2 best are The Dark Knight and Winter Soldier. Winter Soldier kind of separates itself from the MCU, and it's a political spy movie type thriller. Mm-hmm. There's a lot of superhero stuff, Marvel stuff, action stuff, but I mean, it really does stand kind of on its own.
Does that help, though?
What do you mean, does it help?
Because, his Christopher Nolan stood alone by itself. It wasn't a part of a universe.
Yeah, I think that helps with it. It depends on the movie you're trying. I mean, here's the thing. A shared universe either helps or hurts. In something like Ant-Man, it helps. In something like Batman versus Superman, it hurt that movie. Because Ant-Man, it took a character nobody would have gave a shit about, and made, besides comic book geeks like myself, and made people want to see it. Because, it's a Marvel movie. He may be in the Avengers, yada, yada, yada.
Yeah.
Whereas Batman vs. Superman, had it have been a Batman-Superman movie and not trying to be a Justice League prequel, it would have been a better movie, I think.
Yeah.
And that's the thing that Chris Nolan is so good at focusing on the here and now.
instead of planning what's going to come next after this.
Like right now, it's all about Dunkirk. Christopher Nolan probably won't make another movie for 5 years. You know, but he'll probably take a year or two off, but then whatever he's doing will consume him. The problem with these big studio heads and people are that it's always about the next thing, the sequel, the cinematic shared universe, and so I mean it goes back to that old cliche. It's like missing the forest for the trees, or the trees for the forest. I can't remember how it goes. But I mean, will there ever be? They'll never, here, let me just answer this question definitively. There will never be a superhero movie that's this good of a movie.
No.
Like, I don't
It's
think,
a good all-around movie if you're a fan of superheroes or not. I wasn't at the time, and I went out and paid money to see this, which is big for me. So, obviously, other people did that too.
Well, we were talking to your brother at the beach who's into this stuff even less than you. And I got you into a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
But you know, like, he's not into superheroes at all.
Yeah.
And, like, he loves this movie.
Yeah,
and he
it's good
appreciates this
acting.
movie so much.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, how long of a movie is it?
2 hours and 32 minutes.
And then you're, like, focused in on it the whole time.
And it doesn't matter how many times you've seen it.
Yeah.
Like, we watch it about once a year.
Every time I watch it, I catch something new that I didn't notice before.
Yeah.
And I like movies like that.
Most of Nolan's movies, all of them are probably like that.
Yeah, probably.
If this cannot get nominated for Best Picture, or can't win Best Picture.
Was it even nominated?
No, it wasn't nominated. That's what made it kind of go up to 5. But I don't think we live in a world where a superhero movie will ever be nominated. Now, the movie that won in 2008 was so deserving. It was No Country for Old Men.
I never saw that either.
You gotta watch that movie. Your dad loves that movie. But, yeah, so probably will never be another superhero movie that's this good of a movie, going back to our original closing question there. I mean, but usually we would say, what would you rate the film? But it's a given that this is an epic, right?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, there's no doubt about it.
Yeah.
All right, then, Abby. Let's go ahead and close up this bonus edition of the Confirmed Epic Podcast. Where can people find more of you on the internet?
They can't find me.
All right. Thank you for doing this.
I want to stay private.
Thank you for doing this podcast, Abby. I was like asking Abby all week because we watched this movie a couple days ago, and I was asking Abby all week kind of.
I figured I would just let you have a night since we'd be watching Shark Week this week.
Yeah, this week Shark Week. But I was like all week, when are we gonna do this podcast? Because we did the Jaws one, and I thought that'd kind of be cool in the same summer to release a bonus episode where we review your favorite movie.
My favorite and your favorite?
And my favorite movie. So thanks for being on
Both
here.
are totally different.
Yeah.
But Spielberg and Nolan.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk a lot about on the next episode, which is going to be another bonus episode when we talk about Dunkirk. Is Christopher Nolan the best director going right now?
Really?
Yeah, so here's what's coming down the pipeline. This podcast is hitting. There's going to be a review of Dunkirk and a discussion of all things Mondo at San Diego Comic-Con 2017 with my friend and former Pop Culture Potluck podcast co-host, the one and only Will Maney. So that will be fun. He's the only person I know that loves Christopher Nolan as much as me. And then at the end of this week, episode 70 of the Confirmed Epic Podcast will be hitting on Thursday. Hard to believe it's going to be 70 episodes, Abby.
Yeah, when did you start this? You started this when I was in Greenville, didn't you?
Oh, well, we took, there's been a lot of hiatuses and stoppages and whatnot. I think we started in either January 2013 or 2014. I can't remember.
That seems
I think it was
so
2013,
long ago, but it really wasn't.
Yeah, well, time flies when you're having fun. But in episode 70 of the pod, we're going to review Batman Mask of the Phantasm, which came out in 93, but is being released on Blu-ray this week. Warner Brothers is doing a complete restoration of that film, so we're going to talk about that. But we're going to talk about and there's been a ton of epic news from San Diego Comic-Con 2017. So that should be fun. You can find me, of course, at the Epic Review, thepicreview.com, at Geeks Worldwide, thegww.com. You can find me on Twitter, as always, at The Real Brad Bell, DREEL, Brad Bell. Please don't forget to rate and review us on iTunes. Thank you for listening. Thank you for downloading. Thank you for clicking play. And once again, from the Hollywood foothills of North Carolina, we are out.
That's all I have to say about that.
This has been a production of the GWW Radio Network. Please don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review us on iTunes, Stitcher, and SoundCloud. Also, check out Geeks Worldwide at thegww.com for all the latest news, reviews, and opinions on video games, comics, movies, TV, cosplay, and more. Geeks, assemble!